I wish we weren't back here to talk about this stuff again. I wish we didn't have to talk about another school shooting. Um, but we do. I'm here in Iraq, and it seems all my mind can focus on is violence in America. And I think it's important that we reckon with that for a minute, that for all the work you invest in to save the lives of people who are fleeing violence in Syria with us, who are fleeing violence in Iraq with us, the work you've done to help people all over the world who are on the run for their lives, that those of us who are Americans cannot seem to figure out policies and postures and preemptively loving ways of life that will combat the violence in our own hearts, that will combat the violence in our own communities on the front lines where we live. And so we give our money and we give our lives away to other people in other countries across oceans, and we don't seem to do the work necessary to combat what's going on in our own hearts, to combat what's going on at home where we live. And as someone who has benefited tremendously from your love, as someone who's gotten to carry your love to some of the most amazing and hurting people on the planet, I just want to humbly say what we give to others cannot be a proxy for the hard work that we must do in our own hearts. We can't get ourselves off the hook by being generous to others. We can't get ourselves off the hook. We can't make our own pain and our own community problems go away by giving to other communities out there. If we're not doing this at home where we live, then there will always be something lacking in the generosity and the service that we do abroad. And so, to put a point on it, let's just talk about white male America for a minute. I am part of you. But I also know from our statistics and the data that we have, there's a greater chance that any one of you listening are a woman, are female, not male. And so in many ways I'm talking to you, my female friend, while recognizing that you are not the problem. White male America is the greatest single problem in this regard. Mass shootings and the violence and the way that we live in fear, or should probably be more living in fear than of some foreign-born terrorism. Violence doesn't have any particular race. Violence doesn't have any particular religion. Violence doesn't have any particular ethnicity. Violence doesn't have any particular geography. But if violence has one thing, above all, violence has a gender. And I'm just here to say that gender is male. And so moms, sisters, grandmothers, I'm speaking to you as part of the problem. And for those men who are here with me, I'm speaking to you. We are part of the problem. We are the perpetrators of more violence anywhere and everywhere in the world than women. Violence does have a gender, and it is male. If you're a mom, if you're raising boys, wow, what a responsibility. What an opportunity. As we look at these lone gunman shooters, we talk a lot about lone. We talk a lot about lonely. We talk a lot about lone wolf. We talk a lot about how they acted on their own. We talk about guns. We talk about guns a lot. We talk about common sense policies for guns. But the thing we never seem to get around to talking about is the man. Lone, gun, man. Why don't we talk about the gender of violence? What is it that goes on in the heart of men that has such a propensity for violence. And what do we need to do? What do we need to become as a people, as a community, to see that violence reduced, to see that violence unmade, to see the defensive, sometimes aggressive postures of men become somehow more self-sacrificing, more self-giving, more self-risking, and less self-taking and less self-protectionist? How can a man be at once protector, provider, if those stereotypes or tropes or roles even hold place in your community and your family, and not overreach and overtake and over grasp for our own security? Where are the role models? Where are the scriptures? Where are the philosophies? Where are the teachers? Where are the educators? Where are the policymakers? Where are the laws that would on some level seek to bind in that violence and to give rise to greater love, to greater service? If you're a mom, certainly if you're a dad, this has to be our great concern, our chief concern, how to raise men who give themselves away, who wield power with great, great humility. So yeah, I want to talk about guns today. I want to talk about policies today. I want to talk about loneliness today. I want to talk about belonging. What about the fact that news is starting to emerge that this lone gun man was a part of a white supremacist group? What do we need to do to address the belonging that he seems to have found with that white supremacist group? Why didn't this alleged shooter find belonging in a different place? Was belonging not there for him? Was belonging not welcoming him in? Were there not other men in his life that reached out to him to be mentors, to be friends? Were there not other friends in his life, peers? What kind of men are we raising who might just now be in middle school or right just now be in high school? What kind of men are we raising? Are we raising the kind of men who are now young boys who look at certain people across the cafeteria and mock and scoff and stiff arm and drive away? If we do, then we're raising the kind of men that create more white supremacist lone gun man. Or are we raising the kind of young men? Are we raising the kind of young boys who would welcome, who would take that risk to walk across the cafeteria, who would be more empathic, who would give their young lives away so that someone else might find belonging outside of the trappings and the extremism of a white supremacist group? And what kind of young women are we raising? Are we raising the kind of young women who are so insecure that they pile on the mockery and they pile on the making fun of the weird looking and the bad hair and the bad social friend, the person with bad social skills, the person who doesn't fit in? Or are we raising the kind of young women who ostracize that guy and make him feel less than and push him away in social spheres? If so, then we are part of the problem. Do we have a faith big enough that includes? Do we have a faith big enough that would reach out to the other? Do we have a leader, a mentor, a guide, a guru, a teacher, a prophet, a priest, a king who would actually give himself away? How many of us on this call would say that we're followers of Jesus? Muslim, Christian, I know so many of you would say that. But are our lives actually conforming to the words and the way and the life-giving self of Jesus? If so, how could we have this kind of stuff? Or are we just wearing it as a badge, wearing it as a t-shirt, wearing it as our own way of belonging to our own kind of tribe, more interested in the labels that are put on us than the cost that could come with actually giving ourselves away? I'm deeply concerned by not just this one shooting, but I think it's 84 others that have happened so far this year, something like that. I can't remember the number, but I've seen a lot of numbers going around, and it's an insane amount of shootings that have happened already this year in some 45 days and in the years since Columbine, when something like this was absolutely mind-blowing. And now it's just become so normative. It's so normal. We could all expect that this news would probably move on in the next day or two. But that's not how it was with Columbine. It was mind-blowing that something like this would happen. And now we've got cell phone footage of it. And, a lot of times I think the way people relate to Jessica and me and our kids, the way people relate to this work that we do, the way people relate to Iraq and Syria is with this sort of, oh, they just must all be used to it now. It's just violent over there all the time. And I mean, honestly, there's an element of truth and an element of deception in that. But maybe we should turn the camera on ourselves for a minute and just ask questions about the degree to which we've normalized violence in our own lives, the degree to which we would prefer to have certain policies and certain rights that afford us certain protections rather than consider what a self-sacrificing life, a self-sacrificing church, a self-sacrificing faith, a self-sacrificing society would look like. What would it look like? Can you dream that? Can you imagine what it would look like? Because here's what I've learned over the years of trying to live this out, of pressing into pain, of putting our ear so close to the ground that you can hear the cries of the people who are most affected. I've learned, Jessica has learned, our team here has learned that if you are actively giving your life away, no one can take it from you. There is no enemy who can take your life if you are handing it away to them. And we spend so much time as an American society obsessed with what the enemy is going to come and do to us, to our society, to our religion, to our class, to our neighborhood, to our family. We are obsessed with personal protection. And I'm just saying, if we would learn to give it away, if we would learn to relinquish our hold on it, if we would learn to look at policies and procedures and postures as acts of agency, as acts of amazing love, then when you lay it down, it's not being taken from you. And so I lay down this gun, not because I'm weak, but because I'm strong. I lay down this right, not because I'm weak, but because I have it to give. I lay this down. I lay this down. I lay it all down because I stand in a kind of security that doesn't need to clench. I stand in a security that can give away. We're not teaching that. And because we're not teaching that, and because we've fallen back on this sort of self-therapeutic kind of religion that just makes us feel good, and these pop psychology things that don't demand anything of us, and we just have these simple platitudes, we're actually not strong enough to ultimately give it away. And so we rely on taking for ourselves and protecting for ourselves. And that leads to the perpetuation of male-dominated violence. Loneliness, yes. Guns, sure. But I'm most interested in manliness right now. What does it mean to be a man? And how can I live as a better man? And how can I lead as a better man and serve as a better man? And as moms that I know more likely than not you are, just based on our numbers, what can I do to help you? How can I serve you and your family in marrying better men, choosing better men, raising better men? I want to be in this together. We have a loneliness and a belonging problem. We are separated. We are afflicted by the separation. We are. And we have a gun problem. But I fear that above all, or as much as anything else, when it comes to violence, we have a man problem. Violence has a gender, and I don't want to ignore it anymore. And as a community of families and a community by the numbers that is predominantly women, I just want to open up this conversation. What do we need to be doing? What do I need to be doing as a man? I submit myself to your wisdom. What do we need to be doing as an organization? I submit myself to listening to you and what can we do together to be and raise better men so that it might be said of us down the road. Not today, it'll take time, but so that it might be said of us down the road with this community, with this society, with this tribe, violence no longer has a specific gender. This community, this way, the people who have adopted this preemptive love posture, they have made it such that violence no longer has a specific gender. Violence has been neutralized or evened out among the genders. Wouldn't that be a beautiful next step, next goal for us to make? To see a reduction in violence in the hearts of men. So I'm listening. In the comments section below, to my email address, to our phone lines, to the open chat box on our website, we'd love to just hear from you. Let us know. What are you feeling? What are your children feeling? What are your families feeling? What's being said? What's not being said where you worship? What's being said or not being said where you work? And how can we serve you and be a part of this conversation in a more helpful and a more meaningful way? We're grateful for you. Thanks for being a part of this preemptive love life. We're learning, and it's an honor to learn with you.